To finish up our dragon eye, first we have to take out what we are working on. So I'm going to go up here to my little file folder, which is next to the Save button, and click on it. I'm going to make sure I'm in the correct section. So I'm going to go to Downloads, that same blue arrow that I had to save. And then I'm also going to change my view because it'll be really hard to find my picture in here if it's just words. So what I like to do is go right up here where it says More Options. So this little upside down triangle, and then change it to Large Icons. Once it's there, I can go scroll through and find the picture I was working on. And then once I find it, I can open it and add it as an image. Now my picture looks really great so far and I'm really proud of it, but I want to make it look more three-dimensional. So what I'm going to do first is find the same color that I used to make these lines last week. We can see right now I have this black right here and I don't want to use that. I want to use this color that I used on my lines. So I have two ways of doing that. I can either right click on the dark line and immediately you see that this color changed. Or, let me go back to black. I could also, if you don't have a right click button, I can use the eyedropper. So I can click on this little eyedropper tool and then put it right on top of that black, or not black line, but the outlines that I used for the scales. And when I click on it, you can see it matched the color that I had. Then I'm ready to do my scales. So what I'm going to do is change my size to 25. And it doesn't need to be perfect. If yours is close to 25, that's fine. I think I'll just keep mine there. I'm going to change my opacity also to 25. Now, the opacity just means how see-through it is. If it's all the way to 100, it's not see-through at all. Okay? If I change the opacity down to 25, then it's pretty see-through. If I do this, you can still see the things underneath. So I'm going to change the size and opacity to about 25. Doesn't need to be perfect. And I'm also going to change my tool to the cotton ball right here, Brush Alpha. And then all I'm going to do to make this look more realistic is I'm going to go all the way around the edge of every single spike and every single scale that I have. When I do that, it's going to give it the appearance of being more three-dimensional. So if I even go over the line a little bit, not a huge deal. This is just going to make it look like there are shadows. So I'm going to go around the inside of every single scale that I have. And again, this is going to make it look much more three-dimensional. Now, this is probably the most boring part of this whole project because you're doing the same thing over and over again, but it's also probably the most important part. Because if we don't do this step, then our whole picture looks very, very flat. We don't want that to happen. We want our picture to look like it has depth, that it has form to it. So I'm going to go all the way around every single thing that I have here. So I'm trying to go kind of fast, but I have lots and lots of scales, so it takes me a little while. Now you can see that the inside stays the same color that it was before. I don't have to be absolutely perfect. I could even just trace on top of the lines that I have, and that would work too. But you can see that the more I do this, the more three-dimensional it looks. It looks like there are actually shadows. It looks like there are actually curves. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that step as quickly as I can. Now feel free to just fast forward through this if you've finished that step. But I've got to show you how to do the whole thing, so I'm going to do the whole thing here. All right, I'm getting close to being done. But already you can sort of see how much more detailed my picture looks because I'm going around every single scale. If I miss a scale, then suddenly those scales still look very flat. We don't want that to happen. And you can see I'm not perfect here. It's not a huge deal if you're not perfect. I think the most important part is that whatever we do these shadows, we want them touching the lines we already made. If we leave a space, then suddenly it doesn't look quite as three-dimensional again. So I'm going to go down here, go all the way along that line, and just make sure I get the sides of my scales too. Okay, so at this point I've got just about everything done, and I can add my final touch. So for my final touch, what I think I'm going to do is just change my color to white and change my size to 10. There we go. So it's not much of a difference, just white, size 10. And for this, I'm just going to add some highlights. So I'm going to stay on the left side of every single spike and do a curved line that goes the same way as the line of my spike. And I'm going to stay on the left-hand side of every single one of these so that it begins to look like it's a little reflection on top of that spike. I could do the same thing for the wrinkles of the eyes, a little reflection. I also kind of like it on the inside down here. And I could do the same thing on the scales that I have. So at this point, I can go to each one of these scales, and I'm always going to go to the left-hand side, go up, and I'm doing this in the skin color, not the shaded part. So right here on the bright red, and then I'm just going to curve along a little bit. And if I do that to all of these, then suddenly it's beginning to look like it's shiny and it has form to it. And the more of these I do, the more realistic it will look. And then once you complete that step, you're finished with your dragon eye. Just don't forget at the end of each step that we're going to come up here and save.